Hi everyone, I'm back with another hair tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to focus on red hair in a fishtail braid. The colors I'll be using are on the left of your screen, and I also used a white pencil from the Caran d'Ache Luminance set. If you don't have one, you can just use the white pencil that comes with the Faber Castell set. I just find that the wax-based pencils like Prismacolor or Caran d'Ache are more opaque, which means they show up better over my darker colors. I have another hair tutorial coming out next week, so if you're interested, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. So the first thing I'm doing is identifying a portion of hair I want to work on, and I'm doing this with my darker colors like Indian Red, Caput Mortuum, and Dark Sepia. And I'm just identifying my darkest areas within that section of the braid, which is usually at either end of the section, including where the braid meets in the middle or where the strands wrap around each other. I then go in with my lighter colors and my midtones to fill in the white. I'm choosing my colors by simply looking at my reference photo, and that's one of the reasons why it's important that if you're drawing realistically, that you have a real-life reference to base your drawing on. So now I'm just darkening up the area where the hair meets in the braid, and then I'm going in with my white luminance pencil to lighten up areas and blend where I need to. And I repeat the process with another layer before moving on to a new section of hair. Now keep in mind that this is a fishtail braid, and so it's not really like a regular braid where the hair wraps around each other in a looser style. This is a little tighter, and so my lines are not as curved as they would be for a braid, but rather straight and at a slight angle going toward the middle. So here I don't know what happened, but it's clear I made a mistake. I somehow made a stroke on my paper that is completely unwanted, and to fix that, I'm lightening it up by using an electric eraser. You really can't erase some of these darker colors completely, but I wasn't too worried about it because later I'll be adding flyaways, and so that light stroke will just look like a flyaway that I purposely added. As an artist, fixing mistakes comes with the territory, and with experience you learn all sorts of ways to fix them. So if you pay close attention here, you'll see I'm using the same techniques I used for the curls in the last tutorial, where I use loose strokes on each end of that section going in the direction of the hair. Once I get both ends dark enough, I fill in the middle with my lighter colors. I do leave some of the darker lines to show in the middle to mimic hair, but don't get carried away. You really want to keep the middle part lighter. But I add some of these lines to add some texture. I then blend with a white pencil, or in this case Ivory, and I repeat the process building layers, and I continue doing that for each section of the braid. Also keep in mind that the hair is going to be even darker where the hair meets in the middle because of all the shadow. So now I'm just moving on to the next section I want to work in using the same techniques. With my darks, I'm adding strokes from either end and then filling in the middle with my lightest color like Ivory. And then I'm going in with some of the mid-tones that I see in my reference photo. Then I repeat the process of adding my dark tones, my lighter tones, and my mid-tones to build layers until there's no more graininess and I have a smooth finish. This could require a little more pressure in the final layers to accomplish that. So sometimes I use a lighter color to map out the direction of the hair if I feel unsure, and then I go over it with a darker color once I feel confident that I got the lines flowing the way I think they should. If I think some of the areas in the hair are too dark, I just lighten them up by using my eraser and going over those areas with a lighter color. Realism has nothing to do with choosing the right colors. I give you the colors I used, and my tip for you is to take those colors, make swatches, test them out, and lay them next to your reference photo. These colors are not the same colors I would use for all red hair. Not only are there different shades of red hair, but depending on the lighting, the same shade of red hair could look very different. So look at your reference photo and make sure you make swatches of all your colors and hold the colors that you think might work to your reference photo and see which colors match best. Make sure you have the colors you'll use for the highlights, the midtones, and the shadowed areas. So in this example, I decided to use white for my highlights and terracotta and burnt ochre as my lighter tones. I used Indian red, Caput Mortuum, and burnt sienna for my midtones, and burnt umber, dark sepia, and sometimes black over those colors for my darkest tones. Note that as I work down the braid, the sections of hair are getting smaller and smaller. Also notice that the braids are not symmetrical and perfect. This is the importance of having a reference. If I were to draw this from my head, I would probably make all the braids look uniform. I might know that the braids get smaller as I work down, but I wouldn't have remembered that there are some sections that stick out more than others and that some are at more of an angle. So there's really not much to the hairband. I just outlined it and colored it in, and then I added a highlight in the middle. So now I started the tail of the hair, and I used one of my lighter colors to map out the direction of the hair, and then I'll go back over it with a darker pencil before I color the entire area lightly with burnt ochre. I'm paying very close attention to my reference photo to see where my lights and darks are, and to help me choose which colors I'll use for each area. So I'm just drawing what I see, but as I'm drawing, I'm using the same techniques I used for the small braid sections. I'm using strokes starting at the top where the hair meets the band, and I'm making these strokes to flow with the hair. So now I'm adding flyaways within the section of hair I was just working in with a white pencil, and I'm using my burnt ochre to add flyaways around that section of hair and around the braid. I also used the color Ivory to add flyaways within the braid, and then I took my black pencil and started darkening up some areas that needed to be darker. Later I'll use a slightly darker color to add more flyaways. Now I'm starting the top of the hair and I'm mapping everything out with a lighter pencil. This time I think I used the color Terracotta to do this, but it doesn't really matter because I'm just using it to get an idea of where everything is going to go before making it permanent by adding my darker colors. Again, I'm using strokes that go with the flow of the hair to add texture. So the first couple of layers don't really look much like hair, but as I build up my layers, it will. Also note that the hair is much darker where it collects and meets with the braid. So now I'm adding stray hairs around the hair and the braid, and again I'm using burnt ochre and terracotta for this. And for the darker flyaways I use burnt sienna. For the stray hairs within the hair and the braid I used ivory and white. And now I'm just making the final touches. I'm darkening areas that need to be darker. I also noticed that some parts of the hair needed to be more red, so I'm using Indian red to do that. I'm also making sure my highlights are light enough, as well as adding more flyaways. And I will keep adding details until I'm happy with it. So that's it for the red hair. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them. And if you like this tutorial, please give it a like. Next week, I'll be drawing black hair, so if you want to see that, please subscribe and hit the little bell icon so that you get notified when the next tutorial is ready. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you then.